Chosen one. This moment is not an accident. You are not hearing these words by chance. This is heaven's signal that you have passed the final test. Everything you thought was loss, every moment you were pushed to your limits, was actually a stepping stone, bringing you right here. I remember that quiet night when you sat alone, a dim light casting long shadows on the wall, and every voice in your mind screamed, "Stop, just give up." But instead of letting go, you breathed out a small prayer. That short, trembling prayer shook the halls of heaven. No one else saw it, but the angels recorded every tear as undeniable proof of your faithfulness. Picture a seed buried deep beneath cold soil. No one can see it. No one believes it's alive. Yet underneath, life is pushing downward and outward, preparing to break the surface. The dark season you just endured was never the end. It was the preparation for a sudden eruption of life. The enemy thought it could extinguish you with strong winds, but in reality, it only fanned the flames inside you. Every battle you faced was never meant to measure your strength. It was meant to prove that even when darkness pulled at your ankles, you kept your eyes lifted toward heaven. The Word of God declares in the book of Psalms, chapter 126, verse 5, "Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy." This is your testimony now. You have sown in tears, and the season of joyful harvest is approaching. Let me tell you about someone I'll call Miriam. She went through 4 years without hearing a clear answer from God. In that time, she watched doors open for everyone else while she remained in the waiting place. Yet, she did not give up. She served quietly. She gave generously, even when her finances were tight. She smiled when her heart ached. And then, without warning, God opened a door no human could shut. It didn't come through her striving. It came because she had passed the test of endurance. Now, you are like Miriam. Your hidden years were not wasted. Years, they were your training ground for the greater assignment ahead. You are leaving the battlefield with scars. Yes, but also with heaven's Medal of Honor on your chest. From this point forward, you will feel a shift in the spiritual atmosphere around you. The pressures that once crushed you will lift. Toxic ties will dissolve on their own. Like a ship leaving shallow waters for the open sea, you are moving into the deep where the waves are bigger. But so is the catch. Remember, this is not the finish line. This is the coronation before the campaign. Many are still where you once were, and your voice will now serve as the light that leads them out. If this word speaks to your spirit, type the number 144 in the comments as a prophetic act, confirming that you have passed the final test. And if this has encouraged you, like it, share it, so someone else can be lifted, and subscribe so you don't miss the next instructions. Because when heaven declares you've passed, it's not just a private moment, it's an announcement in the spiritual realm. Your name is now spoken in places you've never entered, by people you've never met. Opportunities are already being set in motion, not because you chased them, but because they've been assigned to chase you. And understand this, passing the final test changes the way you walk into a room. You're no longer someone hoping to be chosen. You are already chosen, carrying the authority of one who has been through the fire and come out refined. You may feel the same on the outside, but in the spirit, you wear a mantle that commands attention. Think of a key forged in extreme heat and hammered into shape. Before the process, It was just a piece of metal. Now, it can open doors no other key can. That's you. The heat of trials has shaped you into the exact fit for what heaven wants to unlock next. So, guard this moment. Don't rush ahead out of excitement. Stay sensitive to the voice that guided you here. Keep your spirit in tune, because the same God who brought you through will direct your steps forward. And as you walk, remember, you are not merely surviving anymore. You are stepping into your reign, and from this reign will flow rivers of influence, healing, and truth. Everywhere you set your foot, light will break through shadows, and those who once doubted you will witness the undeniable mark of God's hand resting upon your life. You did not stumble into this victory by chance. It was forged in a furnace of moments that would have broken most. Every sleepless night, every unanswered question, every season of silence, it was all measured. There were times when you thought nothing was changing. Yet in the unseen, foundations were being poured beneath your feet. There's a depth to you now that can't be faked. It's the kind of weight that only comes from standing when everything told you to fall. That weight is why the final test was placed before you. It was not meant to expose weakness, but to reveal what heaven already saw in you. I think of a mountain climber scaling a sheer wall of ice. To the untrained eye, each step seems small, insignificant, but each foothold is deliberate. Each grip intentional. One wrong move, and the climb is over. That's how your last season looked. Inch by inch, prayer by prayer. You moved upward, and though no one applauded, you reached the top of that wall. Now, looking back, you can see the peril you crossed. The ancient words recorded in the book of James, chapter 1, verses 2 and 3, still speak with power. Consider it joy when you face trials, because the testing of your faith produces perseverance. This perseverance has been built into your spirit like steel, flexible enough to bend with pressure, but impossible to break. Some lessons can only be learned in the slow grind of waiting. Like the farmer who plants and then endures the long months before harvest, you learned patience, not as a theory, but as survival, and while you waited, the soil of your character was being enriched, made ready to sustain the weight of blessing without collapsing under it. I recall another story, this time of a young man named Caleb. For years, he carried a promise that seemed almost impossible. People around him gave up, stopped believing, moved on to easier pursuits. But Caleb remembered the voice that had spoken to him. He trained in obscurity, prepared when no one was watching. When the day came, he was ready, not because opportunity knocked unexpectedly, but because he had kept himself in a state of readiness. That readiness is now your reality. You don't have to scramble or force things into place. You've been positioned so that when the door opens, and it will, you won't just walk through. You'll stride in with the authority of someone who belongs there. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Isaiah in chapter 43, verse 2, declaring, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you." This was not only true in the past, it is a living promise over your present and your future. The passing of the final test also brought clarity. What once felt like a fog over your spirit is lifting. There were seasons when you second-guessed every decision, unsure if you had heard God at all. Now, the static is gone. You will find that choices become more decisive, your discernment sharper, and your inner peace unshaken even when others panic. Think of it like a sculptor chiseling away at a block of marble. Each strike of the hammer in the past season seemed random, even cruel. But now, stepping back, you see the shape emerging. The edges have definition. The figure is taking form. You are no longer just raw material. You are a vessel crafted for a specific purpose. And there's something else. The endurance you've built is not just for your own benefit. You've been prepared to carry others. Your testimony is no longer theory. It's a living example of resilience under pressure. When people look into your eyes, they will see the reflection of battles fought and won. And without a single word, your presence will tell them it's possible to make it through. End quote. This is why the season of testing could not be avoided. Without it, the depth of your compassion would be shallow, your understanding thin. But having lived through it, you can now guide others through their storms without fear of the waves yourself. The final test was not a pass, fail in the way the world thinks. It was a refining, a stripping away of everything that could not survive where you're going next. And now that it's complete, you move forward lighter, but stronger, carrying only what is meant to last. This is where your journey shifts from enduring to advancing. You've been trained in the shadows. Now the stage is set, not for the applause of men, but for the fulfillment of what heaven entrusted to you long before you knew its magnitude. You may not realize it yet, but something about you has shifted permanently. The fire you walked through did not just refine you, it gave you an authority that cannot be purchased or imitated. It's the kind of authority that can only be earned through obedience under pressure. I want you to think back to the moments when the cost felt too high. You could have turned away. You could have compromised to make the road easier. But you didn't. You stood still when everything else was moving. You refused to trade your crown for temporary comfort. It's like a bridge made of glass, stretching over a deep canyon. Every step felt risky. Every crack underfoot made you question whether you'd make it. But you kept walking. Not because you saw the other side clearly, but because you trusted the one who called you to cross. That trust is the reason you are standing on solid ground now. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 18, verse 32, "It is God who arms me with strength and keeps my way secure." You have felt the truth of this, not as theory, but in practice. Each time you faced what could have destroyed you, strength appeared that you cannot explain apart from him. I recall the story of a woman named Leora. For years, she felt like she was carrying invisible chains. She prayed for breakthrough, but it seemed delayed. Then came the moment when she chose fully and without hesitation to obey what God asked. Even though it cost her dearly, that decision unlocked the door she had been knocking on for years. She told me later, "It wasn't the action itself, it was my willingness to say yes no matter the price." That's what happened in you. That's why the final test turned into a final victory. Understand this. When you choose the narrow way, you are not just affecting your own life. You are breaking cycles for those who will come after you. Your choice becomes a torch. Others will follow. And the very darkness that tried to keep you bound will become the backdrop for the light you now carry. Now, I want you to pause and mark this moment. Write it down if you have to. The day you read these words is a memorial stone in your journey. In the Old Testament, the people of God would set up stones after great victories so future generations could ask, "What happened here?" and be told of God's faithfulness. You are building that same testimony today. Type, "My crown stays," in the comments, not as a casual statement, but as a declaration that you refuse to lay down what God has placed upon your head. In the unseen realm, your crown represents the authority, the identity, and the reward you have gained through endurance. Many lose theirs because they exchange it for momentary comfort, recognition, or compromise. But this is your vow before heaven and earth. The crown given to you in secret will remain on your head in public. Every time you speak those words, you're reminding your spirit, "I have come too far to hand over what cost me so much." The road ahead is not without challenge, but it is no longer a road of proving. It is a road of carrying the mantle you've been entrusted with, carrying the wisdom that others desperately need, carrying the presence of God into places that have never known it before. And as you walk, remember, you didn't earn this through perfection. You arrived here through trust, and trust will be the compass in every step. From here on, you will feel the difference. It is no longer the trembling trust of someone unsure, but the steady trust of one who has seen God's hand in impossible places. This trust will guide you into decisions that look risky to others, but are anchored in divine wisdom. When storms come, you won't panic. You've been through worse and watched the waves still under His command. When doors close, you won't beg them to open. You'll wait for the ones heaven has already unlocked. Your crown is not simply a symbol. It is a reminder that the same God who crowned you is the one who sustains you. Let it sit firmly on your head, not tilted by fear or swayed by pressure. You have already crossed the line from striving into reigning. Now, every step forward is not a question of if you'll make it, it's a certainty. And with each step, your life becomes a living testimony that crowns are not for the comfortable, but for the courageous. You wear yours not in silence, but as a beacon, proving endurance births glory that cannot be stolen. You might not have noticed it yet, but the moment you passed the final test, something shifted in the rhythm of your life. What once felt like resistance in every step has been replaced with a subtle current carrying you forward. The air feels lighter, not because the challenges are gone, but because you are no longer dragging the weight of uncertainty behind you. There's a quiet authority that comes with surviving the impossible. It's not loud or boastful, but it changes the way you enter a room. People can sense it before you speak. They can feel there's a history in you, a story etched into your spirit that commands respect without demanding it. I think of it like a seasoned sailor who has weathered storms that would have sunk a less experienced crew. The sea still holds waves and sudden winds, but the sailor's hands are steady on the wheel, and his eyes scan the horizon with a confidence born of survival. You are that sailor now. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in Deuteronomy, chapter 31, verse 8. The Lord Himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. You've walked long enough to know this isn't just poetic encouragement. It's the reality that carried you through your darkest nights. The clarity you now carry is dangerous to the plans of the enemy. In the past, confusion was his weapon against you. A whisper of doubt could make you hesitate. A single setback could make you question the entire journey. But now, there's a groundedness in you. You can still hear the noise around you, but it no longer pierces your decision-making. I recall the story of Ezra, a craftsman who spent years working on intricate designs in secret. No one saw his preparation. and many assumed his talent would never be noticed. But when a royal commission suddenly came, he delivered with such precision that it changed the standard for all who came after him. That's what happens when preparation meets divine timing. Your skill, your endurance, and your faith align in one perfect moment. This alignment is not just for your own advancement. The authority you now hold will serve as covering for those connected to you. Your prayers will carry more weight. Your counsel will carry more impact. And your presence will bring peace into unstable situations. You have become, in essence, a walking stronghold. Someone the enemy will think twice about confronting directly. Yet with this authority comes responsibility. The more influence you carry, the more your motives must remain pure. The temptation now is not to quit. It's to use your position for your own benefit rather than for the purposes of heaven. That is why humility must remain your guardrail. The same humility that kept you dependent on God in the valley will keep you anchored now that you're on the mountain. Think of a torchbearer in an ancient relay. The flame is not theirs. It was entrusted to them for a time. Their task is not to make it burn brighter through their own strength, but to keep it protected and deliver it to its destination. You are carrying a flame now, and how you handle it will shape the light available to others. There will be moments when the path ahead seems too quiet, almost uneventful. Don't mistake stillness for stagnation. Often, the greatest movements of God in your life will be hidden until they are complete. Just as the roots of a tree grow deeper in silence, so will your influence expand in ways unseen before it emerges in the open. Your survival was never the goal, it was the foundation. Now the building begins. You are no longer in a season of merely enduring what comes. You are stepping into a season of shaping what comes. That means your words, your choices, and even your posture in the face of opposition will have the power to shift atmospheres. The final test was not about whether you could fight, it was about whether you could stand. And having stood, you are now positioned to advance with deliberate, steady steps. From here, every decision matters. Not because you are under scrutiny, but because the weight you carry will ripple out into the lives of many who look to you as proof that victory is possible. This is the season where you stop measuring your worth by the battles you've survived and start measuring it by the ground you claim. Each step forward now is not recovery. It is territory taken for the kingdom's purpose. The moment you crossed the threshold of the final test, you stepped into a reality where heaven's recognition is already upon you. What you carry now is not just for you, it is for the countless lives your obedience will touch. It's like standing at the top of a mountain you once only saw from a distance. The climb was grueling. Your legs burned. And more than once you thought about turning back. But here you are, and from this height, you can see why every painful step was worth it. The view stretches farther than you imagined, revealing paths you didn't even know existed. You've been entrusted with influence. Influence is not measured in applause or numbers. It's measured in the eternal impact you leave on hearts. Your words will now cut through noise because they come from a place of hard-won truth. Your presence will shift atmospheres because you've walked through darkness carrying a light that refused to go out. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 15, verse 58, "Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourselves fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain." This is not a poetic ideal, it is your lived reality now. I think of Jonas. a man who once felt invisible in his own calling. For years, he served in small, hidden places, never imagining that anyone noticed. But what he didn't see was how his faithfulness was building credibility in heaven. When the right time came, doors opened so wide, it startled him. People called it sudden. But God had been preparing it all along. Your story mirrors his. What seemed quiet was actually strategic. Now, the question becomes, what will you do with what you've been given? This is where the power of stewardship enters the picture. Every opportunity, every relationship, every platform that comes your way must be handled with the same faithfulness you showed when you had nothing but promises. And this is where I speak to your heart about partnering in the mission. If these words have been a source of strength to you, imagine how many others could be reached if the message goes farther. When you like and share, you're not just clicking a button, you're extending the reach of a light into someone else's darkness. When you subscribe, you're choosing to stay connected, so your spirit is consistently nourished. There is also the quiet yet powerful act of giving. It's not about the amount, it's about sowing into the work that has sown into you. Every seed you plant becomes part of someone else's breakthrough. And whether it's $1 or 100, it's a declaration that you believe in fueling what heaven is doing through this message. Think of it like a river. The water that flows in must also flow out, or it becomes stagnant. The revelation and encouragement you've received are meant to move through you, not stop with you. Your engagement, your likes, your shares, your support becomes the current that keeps the river alive. You've passed the test. Yes, but now, there's a responsibility to carry the fire forward. You're not a bystander in this story. You are an active participant in heaven's unfolding plan. The ripple effect of your obedience, combined with your willingness to share and support, will reach farther than you can measure. I see it like a torch relay in the ancient world. One runner carries the flame, but the journey to the finish line requires many hands. You've been handed the torch now. Your endurance brought you here, but the mission calls for passing that flame to others, and that requires intentional action. So, walk forward with a fresh awareness. You're not the same as you were before the test. Your heart is steadier, your vision clearer, your steps surer. You carry the proof that God is faithful, and now it's your turn to become a channel of that faithfulness to others. If this word has spoken life into you, then like it not for the sake of numbers, but as a signal to the algorithm that someone else needs to see it. Share it not because I said so, but because someone in your world is right now facing their own final test. Subscribe not to follow a personality, but to keep your spirit aligned with truth in the days ahead. And if you feel led, sow a seed into this work, not out of pressure, but out of gratitude and faith, for the harvest it will bring to others. You have not only crossed a line, you have taken your place in the ranks of those entrusted to carry heaven's message. Carry it well. You may have thought the passing of your final test was just an ending, but in truth, it was an unlocking. In the spiritual realm, there are doors that do not respond to effort, influence, or even persistence. They respond only to faith proven in the fire. The moment you stepped out of that trial, keys were placed in your hand. These are not ordinary keys. They are assignments, opportunities, and alignments that have been waiting in a vault for you. No one else could claim them because no one else was called to walk your path. Some of these doors will open in ways that defy human logic, connections that seem impossible, resources that appear without warning, timing that is so exact you will know it is divine. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. You have lived the truth of this verse. Every time you surrendered what you couldn't control, your path was being straightened, even when it looked like you were walking in circles. I remember the story of Nathan, a man who once believed that if he worked hard enough, he could force his breakthrough. He pushed, he planned, he networked, but every door remained closed. It wasn't until he finally let go, admitting that he couldn't make it happen in his own strength, that things shifted. In a single week, 2 opportunities came to him that he had been chasing for years. He told me later, "The day I stopped striving was the day heaven started moving." The doors that are opening for you now are not by coincidence. They are the direct result of your surrender, your obedience, and your willingness to keep walking when the road gave you no signs of progress. Some of them will feel too big for you. This is intentional. They are meant to remind you that the same God who opened the door will also equip you to walk through it. Think of a hallway lined with doors, each with a different design. Some are ornate and grand. Others are plain and unassuming. In this season, God will lead you to the right doors at the right time. Do not waste energy pounding on every one you see. The key in your hand fits a specific lock, and when you find it, the door will swing open effortlessly. And here is what you must understand. Some of these unlocked doors are not just for you to walk through, they are for you to hold open for others. Your breakthrough is meant to be multiplied. When you step into new territory, you carry the authority to help others step into theirs. You will also notice something else. Certain doors you once wanted desperately will now look unappealing. The season you've just left has refined your desires. You no longer chase what sparkles if it does not align with your assignment. This is maturity. This is discernment sharpened by experience. There will be moments when the opening of a door feels sudden, almost abrupt. But sudden doors are rarely sudden. In heaven's timeline, they are simply the visible moment of a process that began long before. Every prayer, every act of faith, every refusal to quit was another turn of the key. So, as you walk into this season, remember, the unlocking is not just about opportunity, it's about purpose. Every open door is an invitation to steward what you've been given with integrity, to walk humbly into spaces you could not have entered before, and to carry the presence of God with you wherever you go. If you are reading this and feel the stirring of confirmation in your spirit, I want you to mark it with a prophetic act. Type the number 555 in the comments. Let it be your agreement with heaven that you recognize the unlocking has begun. This number will be your reminder that grace, favor, and divine alignment are now operating in your life in a new measure. Not every door will open at once, and that is by design. Some will require you to grow into them, others will require the right timing to be most effective. But be assured of this, what God has unlocked for, you cannot be relocked by any human hand. This is your season to stop staring at closed doors and start walking confidently through the open ones. Each step you take is not just movement, it is possession. You are stepping into places prepared for you long before you even knew they existed. Acceleration is not always visible at first. In fact, the moment it begins, it can feel almost the same as the slow pace you endured before. But make no mistake, something has shifted in the pace of your life. What once took years will now happen in months. What once required endless effort will now unfold with divine ease. It's like a river in spring after the ice has broken. For months, the surface appeared still and lifeless, but underneath, water was pushing forward. Pressure was building, and the moment the thaw came, it surged ahead with unstoppable force. That's where you are now, stepping into a current that will carry you farther in less time than you thought possible. The ancient words recorded in the book of Amos, chapter 9, verse 13, still carry weight today. The days are coming, declares the Lord, when the reaper will be overtaken by the plowman and the planter by the one treading grapes. This is the language of acceleration, a harvest so quick it overtakes the sowing. You may begin to notice that things you prayed for long ago are suddenly appearing, not in isolation, but in clusters. One answer will spark another, and before you can fully process it, you will be stepping into the next. This is not coincidence. It is the compressed timing of heaven, where delay gives way to rapid fulfillment. Acceleration requires readiness. If you are not prepared, an open door can overwhelm you as much as a closed one once frustrated you. But your preparation season was not wasted. The discipline you built, the faith you cultivated, the resilience you forged, they will all serve you now as the pace increases. I remember the story of Lydia, a woman who felt like she was moving in slow motion while the world around her sped ahead. For years, she invested in relationships, skills, and projects that seemed to go unnoticed. Then one opportunity arrived, and in the space of 6 months, every seed she had sown seemed to bloom at once. Her business expanded, her influence grew, and her spiritual walk deepened, all in a fraction of the time she expected. She told me it was like God pressed fast forward, but only after I had learned how to walk well in slow motion. Answered, in this season, your steps will feel lighter, not because the journey is without effort, but because momentum is now in your favor. Momentum is a gift, but it is also a responsibility. It means choosing your direction carefully, because once you are moving quickly, small deviations can lead to big differences in destination. Think of an archer drawing back the string of a bow. The longer the pull, the greater the tension. The greater the tension, the farther the arrow will fly. Your long wait was the pullback. Now comes the release. And when the arrow flies, it will not crawl toward its target. It will strike swiftly and with precision. This pace will also reveal things in acceleration. What is solid will stand, and what is unstable will quickly fall away. You may see certain relationships or opportunities fade as the speed increases, not because they were bad, but because they were not built to move at the velocity God is now taking you. There will be days when you look back and struggle to believe how much has changed in such a short time. Keep a record of these days. Write them down, not just for yourself, but for those who will one day need proof that God can redeem lost time. Your testimony will become a roadmap for those who feel stuck. A reminder that stillness does not mean abandonment. Acceleration is not about rushing, it's about alignment. When your steps match heaven's pace, you no longer waste time on detours that were never part of your assignment. You move with the wind at your back, and every action carries multiplied impact. Guard your focus in this season. Distraction is the enemy of acceleration. The same enemy that could not stop you in the slow season will try to derail you in the fast one. Stay anchored in prayer, grounded in the Word, and mindful of the purpose for which you are being carried forward. This is your moment to cover more ground in less time than you imagined possible, not by striving, but by surrendering to the current already moving you. And as you move, remember, the speed is not the goal. The destination is, because the destination holds the fulfillment of every promise spoken over you and the lives tied to your obedience. Let the current carry you with confidence, knowing every moment is intentionally moving you closer to what was prepared all along. Acceleration is only part of the story. The speed is valuable, but equally important are the people who appear on the path. During this season, the allies heaven sends for your next assignments. You will not walk this road alone. These allies are not just companions for comfort, they are strategic partners for your mission. Some will carry wisdom in areas you are still learning. Others will open doors you could never have accessed on your own. A few will stand as intercessors, covering you in prayer when the battles grow intense. The ancient record in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 4, verse 9, tells us, "Two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor." This is not just about efficiency, it's about protection, encouragement, and shared vision. In past seasons, you may have experienced isolation. You fought battles in silence, carried burdens without help, and endured seasons where no one seemed to understand your calling. That isolation was not punishment, it was preparation. It taught you to lean fully on God, so that when allies arrived, you would not depend on them for validation, but for collaboration. I think of Samuel, a man who for years worked quietly in his craft. He had ideas, dreams, and plans, but no one to share them with. Then, in a short span of time, he met 3 people who each carried a piece of the puzzle he'd been holding. Together, they built something none of them could have accomplished alone. He often said, "They didn't just help me, they completed what I couldn't see." 1. Your allies will be diverse. Some will be older, bringing the stability of experience. Others will be younger, bringing fresh vision and energy. A few will come from unexpected places, even from backgrounds you never imagined would intersect with yours. Pay attention to those divine intersections. They often carry the fingerprints of heaven. Partnerships like this require discernment. Not everyone who approaches you in this season is meant to walk closely with you. Acceleration attracts attention, and some will try to connect for their own gain. This is why the discernment you built in past seasons is so critical now. You will recognize genuine allies, not just by their words, but by the peace you feel when you're with them and the fruit you see in their lives. Think of these allies as parts of a body. Each one plays a role. One may be the eyes, seeing dangers ahead. Another may be the hands, building what is needed. Another may be the voice, speaking into places you cannot reach. Your role is just as vital, and together, the body moves with strength and purpose. Some of these allies will walk with you for a lifetime, others will join for only a season. Do not measure their value by duration. Even a short-term ally can have a long-term impact if they are aligned with God's timing and purpose for your life. And remember, you are also being sent as an ally into someone else's story. The wisdom you carry, the prayers you offer, the encouragement you speak, these may be the very things that keep another person moving forward when they feel like giving up. In this season, connection will feel different. It won't be forced or manufactured. It will flow naturally because the Spirit is orchestrating it. You will look back and realize that the people you've met were not chance encounters. They were answers to prayers. You didn't even know how to pray. Guard these relationships well. Invest in them with time, honesty, and mutual respect. Pray for your allies as much as you pray for yourself. Celebrate their victories as if they were your own. Because in the kingdom, their victories are your victories too. You are moving into a chapter where unity will multiply your impact. Alone, you carried the flame. Together, you will carry a blazing fire that cannot be ignored. And when you walk with those who share your purpose, every step forward feels lighter. Every battle feels more winnable. And every victory feels even sweeter. These alliances are not just for survival, they are for advancement. When God brings the right people, your capacity grows, your reach extends, and your vision sharpens. There will be moments when their insight saves you from a costly mistake, and times when your encouragement keeps them from walking away from their own assignment. This is the beauty of divine partnership. It's never one-sided, and it's never accidental. Each connection is a deliberate placement in heaven's blueprint, designed to ensure that none of you run this race in vain. And as you move together, you will see that what felt impossible alone becomes inevitable when walked out in unity. Your influence is expanding beyond places you've ever physically stood. In this season, your name will be mentioned in conversations you didn't initiate, in rooms you've never entered, and among people who have never met you face to face. This is not about human networking, it's about divine positioning. There is a principle woven throughout Scripture. When God raises someone up, He also raises their voice, their reach, and their impact. It's the moment Joseph went from prison to palace and suddenly found his wisdom in demand across a nation. The same Spirit that placed him there is the one who is now positioning you. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 33, verse 14. My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. This is the secret behind every divine introduction. You're not being noticed because of your striving, but because His presence on your life draws the attention of those who need what you carry. There's a story I remember about Anna, a young woman who quietly worked behind the scenes in her community. She never sought titles or recognition, only to serve faithfully. One day, without warning, she received an invitation to speak at an event she didn't even know existed. Later she learned that someone she had helped in secret had spoken her name to the organizers. That one opportunity opened a chain of connections that changed her life's direction. What's happening to you now is similar. God is bringing your name into the awareness of people who have the power to release opportunities, resources, or influence into your life. You may feel unprepared, but remember, you are being called because you've already been proven. Think of it like the fragrance of a rare flower. Even if it's hidden deep in a garden, the wind will carry its scent to those who know how to recognize it. You don't have to wave your arms or shout for attention. The authenticity of what you carry will speak louder than self-promotion ever could. But with this increase in visibility comes the need for discernment. Not every opportunity will be aligned with your assignment. Some doors may look attractive, but lead to distraction. This is why your intimacy with God must remain your filter. If His presence is not in it, your name doesn't need to be there either. Visibility is not the goal. Impact is. Fame without purpose is empty. But influence rooted in obedience becomes a channel for transformation. In this season, your assignment is to steward every introduction and opportunity with humility, excellence, and clarity of mission. You will find that the more faithfully you carry yourself in these moments, the more doors will continue to open without your direct effort. The same God who is speaking your name now will continue to guide it into the right ears at the right time. If you sense this is already happening or believe it's about to mark it with a prophetic agreement, type "Send my name" in the comments, not as a plea for recognition, but as a declaration that you are ready for your name to be placed only where God intends it to be, and nowhere else. Let that phrase remind you, you don't need to force what heaven has already decided. The right people, the right places, and the right timing are already being arranged for you. Your role is to remain steady, faithful, and ready when the moment arrives. When you type "Send my name," you are making a deliberate statement in the spiritual realm. You're not asking for your name to be shouted in every direction. You are inviting God to place it with precision. Like an arrow aimed at a target, you're saying, "Lord, let my name be spoken only where it will glorify you, only where my presence is an answer to prayer, and only where I am meant to serve." This declaration also acts as a safeguard. In a world that pushes self-promotion, you are choosing divine promotion instead. You're surrendering the temptation to manufacture your own influence and trusting the timing and strategy of heaven. Imagine a royal envoy carrying a sealed letter from the king. Your name is that letter. It is meant to be opened only by the right hands at the right moment. Typing these words is your way of sealing the envelope and placing it in God's delivery system. So when you write it, don't rush past it. Say it with conviction. Let it be the echo of your faith that the same God who has carried you this far will place your name exactly where it needs to be. There comes a time when the journey shifts from the private refining place to the public platform. You have been prepared in the shadows, tested in silence, and strengthened in obscurity. Now, God is allowing your voice to carry farther than ever before, not for your glory, but for the fulfillment of the assignment entrusted to you. You may begin to notice that doors are opening where you never even knocked. The ideas you've held close are suddenly relevant to conversations happening in high places. What seemed out of reach months ago is now within arm's length. This is not the result of random luck. It is the fruit of seeds planted in hidden soil, watered with faith and perseverance. The Apostle Peter writes in his first letter, chapter 2, verse 9, "You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light." This is not just a title, it's an assignment. You are being positioned to stand as a living declaration of God's goodness, and your influence is a tool for his glory. I remember the story of Elias, a man who never sought fame or recognition. For years, he quietly worked to serve others in his small community, using whatever little resources he had. Then one day, a single act of kindness was captured and shared online. That moment opened new avenues for him to reach thousands with the same message of hope he'd been carrying all along. Elias didn't change his mission. God simply amplified his reach. And this is where you stand now. Your mission remains the same, but your reach is expanding. This expansion comes with a sacred responsibility to guard the purity of your message, to resist the temptation to dilute truth for popularity, and to steward every platform as if it were an altar. Visibility is a gift, but it is also a weight. The higher the platform, the further the light shines, but also the more the wind blows against it. This is why God didn't give you visibility before your character was anchored. A candle lit too soon can be extinguished by the first draft of wind, but now the flame in you has been tested against storms and proven unshakable. You'll begin to see your influence work in ways that surprise you. A single conversation will shift someone's perspective entirely. A post you share will find its way to the exact person who needed it in that moment. And sometimes, the fruit of your obedience will be invisible to you, but known in heaven. That's why you keep showing up, speaking truth, and walking in faith. In moments like this, it's not just about what you say, it's about how far your voice can travel. When you choose to like and share what carries truth, you are helping the message step into rooms you will never physically enter, touching lives you may never meet. Subscribing is not about following a personality, it's about staying rooted in a stream of encouragement and truth that will keep your spirit steady when the noise of the world grows louder. And when you sow into the very work that has been sowing into you, you become part of the unseen chain reaction that heaven is orchestrating. Every seed, no matter the size, becomes a torch in someone else's darkness. Think of it like a lighthouse on a rocky coast. One person may have built the structure, but it takes many hands to keep the light burning. Your engagement, whether it's sharing, subscribing, or sowing, becomes part of the oil that keeps the lamp from going out. This is not obligation, it's partnership. It's saying, I won't just receive from this light, I will help carry it farther. And as you do, you step into the flow of multiplication, where every act of support ripples into places your feet may never touch. So take your place in this moment. Like to affirm that you stand with this word. Share to pass the flame to someone else. Subscribe to walk together in the days ahead. And if you feel led, give not as a transaction, but as a seed planted for the harvest God will bring through this work. You have not been lifted to visibility just to be seen. You have been positioned to make the light impossible to ignore. And as that light shines through you, it will not only reveal the path ahead, but also awaken others to rise and carry their own flame until the darkness has no place left to hide. Authority is not something you can claim with words alone. It is recognized in the spirit and confirmed by the fruit of your life. The season you have just walked through has not only refined your character, but has also placed a mantle of authority upon you. This mantle is not a symbol of status. It is a functional empowerment to shift atmospheres, confront darkness, and speak life into what appears dead. When true authority rests on someone, it changes the unseen environment before a single word is spoken. It's like walking into a tense room and feeling the pressure lift, even without knowing why. People may not be able to explain it, but they will sense it. What they are sensing is not you, it's the presence and backing of heaven you now carry. The prophet Jeremiah records in chapter 1, verse 10, "See, today I appoint you over nations and kingdoms to uproot and tear down, to destroy and overthrow. to build and to plant. This is the nature of your authority. It both dismantles what is false and establishes what is true. This kind of authority is not given lightly. It requires trustworthiness, humility, and alignment with God's heart. That is why your preparation was so intense. Every moment of restraint, every act of obedience, every silent surrender was forming in you the capacity to carry this without being crushed by it. I recall the story of Marcus, a quiet man in his church who was never in the spotlight. He was known for praying alone in the early hours and serving without being asked. Over time, people began to notice that when Marcus prayed for situations, change followed, not always in the way expected, but always undeniably. He didn't chase influence, yet influence came to him, because authority recognized is authority sought after. In the days ahead, you will see this same dynamic unfold in your life. People will begin to seek you out, not for your opinions, but for the weight your words carry. You will speak into confusion, and clarity will come. You will pray over chaos, and order will begin to take shape. You will declare life where others have only spoken despair, and the shift will be tangible. Authority also carries responsibility. It must be used to serve, not control, to restore, not dominate. The temptation to use it for personal advantage will come, but remember, the authority you carry is on loan from the King. It is His, entrusted to you for His purposes. Think of it like a signet ring in ancient times. The ring itself belonged to the king, but it was placed on the hand of a trusted servant to act in the king's name. The servant's power was real, but it existed only as long as it remained in the king's service. That is the picture of spiritual authority. You are a steward, not the source. Carrying this mantle will also attract opposition. Darkness does not ignore those who carry light that can disrupt it. But opposition is not a sign that you are off course. It is proof that you are exactly where you are meant to be. Remember, you are not standing in your own strength. You are backed by the one whose authority cannot be challenged. Your words will not always be comfortable for others to hear. Sometimes authority requires speaking truth into places where it has been absent for too long. At other times, it requires silence that allows God's presence to do the speaking. Knowing the difference will be part of your ongoing training. This authority is not for every moment, it is for appointed moments. There will be times when you feel the weight of it rest on you like a cloak, and you will know instinctively that it is time to act, to speak, to stand. And when those moments come, you will find that heaven has already prepared the ground for your obedience to bear fruit. This is the season where you no longer question if you are qualified. The fact that you carry the mantle is your qualification. Your journey here has proven your faithfulness, and your future will demonstrate the kingdom impact of one life fully yielded to the will of God. This is not the end of your preparation, it is the beginning of its purpose. Every lesson, every scar, every moment of trust has led to this point. Now, the mantle you carry will become a living testimony that obedience is never wasted, and that God entrusts His authority only to those willing to steward it with integrity, courage, and unwavering devotion to His heart. When the enemy realizes he cannot stop your rise, his next tactic is often intimidation. The goal is no longer to block your path, but to make you question your ability to walk it. Fear, false accusations, and subtle attacks are sent to make you hesitate, because hesitation slows momentum but you've come too far for that now. This is the part of the journey where your resilience becomes your shield. You've already proven you won't turn back in the valley. Now you must prove you won't shrink back on the mountain. The enemy fears your rising because every step you take higher exposes more of his territory to the light. The voice of God speaks through the prophet Isaiah. Chapter 54, verse 17. No weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. Notice it doesn't say the weapons won't form, it says they won't succeed. The attacks may come, but their power to harm you has been stripped away. I think of a woman named Esther, not the queen from Scripture, but a modern-day leader who carried a deep sense of calling. The more her influence grew, the more criticism she faced. Friends turned distant. Strangers questioned her motives. And at one point, she nearly stepped away from her assignment. But then she realized that the very resistance she was facing was proof of the impact she was making. The more she leaned into her calling, the more the opposition lost its hold. That is your reality now. The pressure you feel is not a sign that you're in the wrong place. It's confirmation you're in the right one. Darkness never wastes energy fighting what it isn't threatened by. You will begin to notice that things which used to shake you no longer have the same effect. The words of critics will lose their sting. The delays that once discouraged you will now feel like opportunities to prepare more thoroughly. Even the spiritual attacks that once exhausted you will become moments to demonstrate the authority you've been given. Think of it like standing in the middle of a storm, yet finding that the wind no longer knocks you off balance. You've learned where to place your feet. You've learned to lean into the wind instead of away from it. And you've learned that the storm cannot last forever, but you can. The enemy's fear of your rising is not about who you are, it's about the one who stands behind you. You are a carrier of a light he cannot extinguish, and a truth he cannot twist. And every time you refuse to be silenced, you are reclaiming territory for the kingdom. This is why your discernment matters so much now. Not every battle is worth your energy. Some conflicts are sent just to distract you from the real assignment. Ask the Lord to show you which fights to engage and which to simply walk past. Victory sometimes looks like standing your ground. Other times, it looks like refusing to be pulled off course. In the unseen realm, your perseverance sends a clear message. I will not retreat. And every time you stand, heaven celebrates another advancement. You may not always feel like a warrior, but the marks on your soul tell a different story. They are proof of battles endured and won. If you sense in your spirit that this is speaking directly to your current season, I want you to mark it in faith. Type the number 888 in the comments. Let it be your prophetic declaration that you are not only rising, but you will keep rising, no matter what resistance comes. This number will be your reminder that your path is established in new beginnings, abundance, and victory that cannot be reversed. When you type it, do it with intention. See yourself standing tall in the face of opposition, your eyes fixed ahead, your spirit unshaken. Let that number represent the promise that you are stepping into a season where intimidation loses its power and your rising becomes unstoppable. This is not about surviving the climb anymore, it's about claiming the summit. The view from here will change you, and your courage to keep rising will change others too. And when you reach that summit, you'll realize it was never just about your own ascent. Every step was paving a trail for those who would follow, proving that the climb is worth it. Your victory becomes their vision, and your unwavering rise will ignite faith in hearts. still finding the courage to take their first step upward. There is a shift that happens when your words begin to carry weight in the unseen. It's not about eloquence or volume, it's about authority that comes from alignment with God's heart. The battles you've faced, the seasons you've endured, and the victories you've walked in have all shaped the tone of your voice. When you speak now, it carries the resonance of one who has lived what they proclaim. Words have always been powerful, but when spoken under the mantle of heaven, they become instruments of transformation. Think of a surgeon's scalpel, small in size, yet capable of changing a life in a moment. Your words in this season will have that same precision. They will cut through confusion, fear, and deception, bringing clarity where it was once impossible. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah in chapter 1, verse 9. Then the Lord reached out his hand and touched my mouth and said to me, I have put my words in your mouth. This is what's happening now. Heaven is not simply inspiring you, it is equipping you with speech that carries divine backing. I think of Daniel, a man in his 30s who spent most of his career in the background. He had insight and wisdom, but few ever asked for it. Then one day, a situation arose that no one could resolve. When Daniel spoke, his words unlocked the answer, not because they were clever, but because they were filled with a wisdom that had been tested in silence. After that, people sought him out, knowing that when he spoke, breakthrough followed. Your voice is stepping into a similar season. Conversations you enter will begin to turn. Environments will shift when you contribute. Even in casual moments, something you say will linger in someone's mind, pulling them toward truth, days or weeks later. This is why stewardship over your words is vital now. Words can heal or harm, build or break. In the past, you may have spoken without fully realizing the impact, but now, the measure of influence you carry means your words are seeds. They will grow into something, whether good or bad. Guarding your speech doesn't mean silence, it means intentionality. It means pausing to ensure that what you are about to release carries life, aligns with your assignment, and reflects the heart of God. The more you practice this, the more your words will consistently bear fruit. There will be moments when you are tempted to respond quickly, especially when provoked, but restraint can be as powerful as speech. Sometimes, the authority in your voice is strengthened not by what you say, but by what you choose not to say. It's also important to remember that the authority in your words comes from the source, not from self-confidence. If you ever find yourself speaking without first being anchored in His presence, the weight of your words will diminish. Stay close to the source of your authority, and your speech will remain sharp, clear, and effective. Think of the way a tuning fork works. On its own, it produces a clear note, but when it comes into contact with another surface, it transfers that vibration, causing resonance. In the same way, when your spirit is in tune with God's, your words will resonate with those who hear them, even if they don't fully understand why. As this influence over conversations and atmospheres grows, so will your responsibility to use it for the kingdom. The enemy will try to twist this gift, tempting you to use it for self-promotion or to win arguments. Resist this. The true purpose of this gift is to bring light, freedom, and restoration wherever you go. Your words in this season will not just communicate information, they will carry impartation. They will not just describe possibilities, they will open doors into them. And the more faithfully you steward this gift, the more God will entrust to you. Your speech will become a conduit for divine strategy, releasing solutions that human reasoning could not produce. There will be times when you speak without premeditation, and later realize those words were exactly what the moment required, because they did not originate from you. This is what it means to be a vessel, and as your words begin to shape the paths of others, you'll also notice them shaping you. Every declaration of truth strengthens your own resolve. Every encouragement you give becomes a reminder of the faithfulness you've experienced. You are not simply speaking to change situations, you are speaking to align them with the will of heaven. And in that alignment, the ripple effects will reach further than your voice can carry, touching hearts and places your feet may never step. There comes a moment in every journey when what was once blurry comes into focus. The questions that once weighed heavy begin to have answers. The road you are walking no longer feels like wandering, it feels like purpose unfolding, step by step. That is where you are now. Clarity is not simply knowing what to do next, it's understanding why you are doing it. It is the connection between your past experiences, your present assignments, and your future destination. This is the season where God takes all the scattered pieces and begins to arrange them into a picture you can finally recognize. The psalmist writes in the book of Psalms, chapter 32, verse 8, "I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you with my loving eye on you." This is the promise you are living in right now, divine instruction paired with divine care. In past seasons, you may have felt as though you were walking in fog. You obeyed as best you could, often without understanding the bigger picture. That was not wasted movement, it was training. God was building in you the capacity to trust Him even when you couldn't see Him. Now that clarity is coming. You will be able to look back and recognize His hand in every twist and turn. I think of Miriam, who for years pursued a calling she couldn't fully define. She tried different roles, served in various ways, and often questioned whether she was missing God's will entirely. But as time passed, she began to see how each season had been equipping her with specific skills and experiences. When her true assignment finally emerged, she realized she had been preparing for it all along without even knowing. Clarity brings confidence, but it also brings responsibility. When you see the path clearly, excuses fade. You can no longer claim uncertainty as a reason to delay. Instead, each decision becomes a conscious step toward what you now know you are called to do. Think of a master craftsman working on a complex piece. In the early stages, the shape is rough, and the purpose is hidden. But as the work progresses, the design becomes more defined. Every cut, every polish, every adjustment is made with precision because the craftsman can now see the end result. That is what this season of your life feels like: precise, intentional, purposeful. This clarity will affect more than just your actions. It will affect your relationships, your priorities, and your perspective. You will begin to recognize who and what aligns with your calling, and who and what does not. This is not about judgment, it's about focus. You simply cannot afford to carry distractions into a season where every step matters. Clarity also removes fear. Uncertainty often breeds anxiety. But when you know where you are going, the journey becomes less about survival and more about execution. You will find yourself moving with a steady confidence, even when challenges arise. because you know they are simply part of the process, not signs of being off course. It is important to remember that clarity is not the same as control. You may see your next steps clearly without knowing every detail of how they will unfold. This is by design. God gives you enough light for the step you're on. And as you move, more light will appear for the steps ahead. The key now is to act on what you've been shown. Clarity without action leads to stagnation. But when you move in alignment with the vision you've been given, momentum builds, and doors begin to open that you never imagined. In this season, hold on to the truth that God is both your guide and your guard. He is not simply pointing you toward a destination, He is walking with you to ensure you arrive. And as you walk, the view will continue to expand, revealing more of the beauty and purpose that was always there, waiting for you to see it. Clarity will also sharpen your discernment in ways you've never experienced before. You'll sense when an opportunity is truly from God and when it's merely a distraction wrapped in appeal. You'll recognize the subtle nudges of the Spirit, guiding you around pitfalls before you even see them. This refined vision will help you not only stay on course, but also move with greater efficiency, avoiding detours that once drained your energy. And as you continue forward, each step will reinforce the truth that your life has been divinely ordered. The map was never missing, it was simply being drawn in real time, revealed only when you were ready to follow it faithfully. Your story is no longer just a collection of struggles and victories, it has become a weapon in itself. The very things the enemy meant to destroy you are now the testimonies that will set others free. Every scar has a story, and every story carries the power to break chains for someone else. When you speak of where you've been, you are not simply reminiscing, you are testifying. And testimony is not passive, it's active warfare. Revelation tells us that believers overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. When you share what God has done for you, you are swinging a sword in the Spirit. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 42, verse 10, I do not hide your righteousness. I speak of your faithfulness and your saving help. I do not conceal your love from the great assembly. This is your call now, not to hide what God has done, but to proclaim it boldly, so others may find courage to believe. I think of a man named Raphael. For years, he struggled in silence. Believing his past disqualified him from being used by God. But when he began to share his story, every failure, every miracle, every moment of restoration, he discovered that people were not repelled, they were drawn. His honesty became a bridge for others to step onto their own path of healing. Your story is like that. It may feel ordinary to you now because you've lived it, but to someone else, it's the signpost they've been praying for. The battles you've won are the roadmaps they need. And this is where your role expands beyond personal victory, where your story becomes a bridge for others to cross. If this word has stirred something in you, let it ripple outward. Press like, not for the sake of numbers, but as a way of saying, I stand with this truth. Share it so that the torch you carry can find its way into the hands of someone still walking in darkness. Add your comment to this moment, letting your own testimony echo among voices of faith, because what you release may be exactly what someone needs to hear today. Stay connected by subscribing, not out of routine, but so your spirit remains in the flow of encouragement and direction. And if you feel led, sow into this work, not as a transaction, but as a seed of faith for the lives yet to be touched. Your engagement is not small, it is oil for the flame, keeping the light burning for you and for countless others still finding their way home. When you engage, you are not just supporting content, you are stepping into partnership with a mission. A single like tells the unseen world that you align with the truth spoken here. A share sends this light into places your feet may never go. A comment plants your voice as part of the testimony that will echo in someone else's spirit. Subscribing ensures you remain connected to ongoing strength, so you never fight tomorrow's battles alone. And when you sow, you invest directly into lives still waiting for their breakthrough, making you a co-laborer in the harvest. Each action, no matter how small it feels, becomes a seed, and seeds, when placed in God's hands, multiply beyond imagination. This is how the kingdom expands, not just through one voice, but through a chorus of voices, hearts, and hands moving together in unity toward the same eternal purpose. Your testimony, combined with your actions, becomes an unstoppable force. It doesn't just tell the story, it invites others into it. It builds community, knits hearts together, and pushes back against the isolation the enemy tries to impose. Think of your story as a torch. You can carry it alone and light your own way. Or you can pass the flame so that an entire line of people begins to walk out of darkness together. Every engagement, whether by word, action, or seed, is another flame passed forward. And here's the truth, you don't know who's watching. The person you think will never respond might be the one whose life is changed by a single moment of boldness on your part. The stranger who reads your comment might be days away from giving up until they see proof that someone else made it through. Your story is not just yours anymore, it belongs to the countless others who will find hope in it. Carry it well, speak it boldly, and let it travel farther than you ever thought possible. There is a weight to walking in victory, not the weight of burden, but the weight of stewardship. You now carry the responsibility of living as someone who has seen the faithfulness of God and refuses to forget it. This means your perspective on challenges will never be the same. Where others see impossibility, you will see opportunity, because you have watched God make a way where none existed before. Victory does not remove the need for vigilance. In fact, it sharpens it. The enemy often attacks not at the point of weakness, but at the point of strength. He knows that if he can undermine your confidence after a breakthrough, he can keep you from walking fully in the freedom you've been given. That's why the post-victory season is just as important as the battle itself. The ancient words recorded in Deuteronomy, chapter 8, verse 11, speak clearly. Be careful not to forget the Lord your God by failing to keep His commands, laws, and decrees. Forgetfulness is the quiet thief of victory. It doesn't happen overnight, but over time, when gratitude is replaced with self-reliance. I remember a man named Silas who, after years of struggling financially, finally stepped into abundance through a breakthrough opportunity. At first, he praised God for every provision, but slowly, he began to take the credit for his success. He stopped seeking God's wisdom, relying instead on his own strategies. In time, the abundance that had once flowed so freely began to dry up, not because God abandoned him, but because he had drifted from the source. When he returned in humility, the provision returned as well. And this time, he guarded his gratitude fiercely. Victory is not a finish line, it's a doorway into new levels of trust and responsibility. When you walk through it, you enter a season where your testimony becomes a tool, your endurance becomes an example, and your faith becomes a shelter for others. This is also the time to build. In seasons of battle, your energy is focused on surviving. In seasons of victory, your energy can be invested in planting, establishing, and strengthening. What you put in place now will sustain you in future battles. Think of a farmer who has just come through a harsh winter. The soil has thawed, the sun is warm, and there is peace in the fields. This is not the time to sit idle, it's the time to plant seeds for the next harvest. In the same way, this season of victory is your planting ground. Invest in relationships. Deepen your roots in God's Word, and establish habits that will carry you when the next storm comes. You may also find that victory reveals new layers of your calling. Some things God could not show you before because the battle would have crushed them will now be made clear. This is a time to listen closely. New assignments may emerge, requiring you to step into unfamiliar roles. Trust that the same God who brought you through will equip you for what's next. It is also a season to extend grace. Remember what it felt like to be in the fight, to wonder if you'd make it through. Now that you've crossed over, you can reach back and help someone else take the next step. This is how victory multiplies. It's never meant to be kept to yourself. Guarding your victory means staying alert, staying grateful, and staying connected to the one who gave it. It means refusing to let complacency creep in. It means remembering that your freedom was bought with a price, and living in a way that honors that price daily. You are standing in a season you once prayed for. Now it is time to live like someone who knows what it costs to get here and who intends to use this ground not just for personal gain, but for kingdom impact. Victory also carries the invitation to dream again. Battles have a way of narrowing your vision to survival. But now, your spirit can lift its eyes beyond the immediate. Ask God what He sees for the territory you now stand on. Let Him show you the hidden potential in this season, the people you can pour into, the projects that can be birthed, the foundations that can be laid. And as you dream, keep your heart anchored in gratitude, because gratitude keeps victory pure. The more you remember who brought you here, the more you will walk in humility and strength. This is how you ensure that what was won in one season becomes the foundation for even greater victories in the next. There is a stillness that settles after the battle is won, not the silence of emptiness, but the deep calm of completion. You can almost feel heaven exhaling, as if to say, "It is done. You have passed through the fire, crossed through the waters, and now stand on ground you once thought unreachable." This is not just survival, it is transformation. The book of Isaiah, chapter 60, verse 1, declares, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." That is the word that rests on your life now. You are no longer defined by the darkness you endured, but by the light you carry. Every scar tells a story, but those stories no longer whisper of pain, they proclaim of victory. This season is not about proving yourself anymore. That test has already been passed. It is about inhabiting the space you've been prepared for. The final test was never about your strength, it was about your faithfulness. And because you remained, because you refused to surrender when surrender seemed easiest, you now hold the crown of endurance. I think of Lydia, a woman who spent years in waiting. She prayed, served, and obeyed. Yet it seemed like every promise was delayed. Many nights. She wondered if she had misunderstood God altogether. But when the appointed time arrived, everything shifted quickly, doors opened, opportunities aligned, and her purpose came into full bloom. Looking back, she realized the waiting was not wasted. It had shaped her into the kind of person who could carry the weight of fulfillment without collapsing under it. You are stepping into a similar fulfillment. This is the moment where everything behind you converges to propel you forward. The tests, the delays, the tears, they were all deposits into the strength you now walk in. And this strength is not fleeting, it is anchored in eternal truth. But do not mistake completion for finality. One chapter closes only for another to open. Passing the final test does not end your journey. It ushers you into a new dimension of it. What once was training ground has become your launching pad. What once was pruning has become fruit-bearing. What once felt like loss now reveals itself as gain, reframed in the light of God's purpose. The weight of destiny now rests on you, not as a burden, but as an inheritance. You are no longer proving identity, you are walking in it. No longer striving for approval, you are moving from the certainty of being chosen. That changes everything. Picture a tree that has endured harsh winters. Its bark carries the marks of storms. Its branches have been bent by winds. Yet when spring comes, it blossoms fuller than trees that never knew struggle. The beauty of its fruit is directly tied to the resilience of its survival. That is the image of your life, now tested, weathered, but flourishing in a way that could not have been possible without the journey. And here is the mystery. The final test was never really about what you could accomplish. It was about who you would become. Heaven was not waiting for your perfection, but for your perseverance. And because you persevered, you have become the kind of person God can trust with influence, authority, and legacy. Stand in this moment, not with trembling, but with quiet confidence. The worst is behind you, and the best lies ahead. The road may still hold challenges, but you will face them with a new strength, a deeper wisdom, and an unshakable assurance that you are equipped for whatever comes. This is not the end, it is the unveiling. You have passed the test. You are ready. And heaven's declaration over you is simple: shine. Shining does not mean drawing attention to yourself. It means reflecting the one who carried you through. Your life is now a living beacon, reminding others that endurance is worth it, that faith is not in vain, and that God's promises do not fail. Each step you take forward will be a testimony to those still in their wilderness. Some will follow your light without even realizing it, simply because hope radiates from your presence. And as you continue, you will see how your obedience becomes a ripple, spreading beyond your immediate circle. Your light will inspire voices you never meet, ignite faith in hearts you never touch, and shape futures you may never witness. This is the fruit of passing the final test. You step into a life that multiplies beyond measure, where every moment you live becomes proof that God still writes stories of victory. You have reached the end of this message, but truly, it is the beginning of a greater journey for you. Passing the final test has not just proven your endurance, it has unveiled your destiny. You now stand as one who carries light into places where darkness once reigned, and your very presence is a testimony that God is faithful to complete what He begins. But this light was never meant to stay with you alone. It is meant to spread. Every simple act of engagement becomes a way of passing the flame forward. When you touch that heart-shaped button, it's more than a click. It is your public declaration that you stand with truth. When you choose to share, you are releasing hope into timelines and lives you may never personally reach. When you leave a comment, even just a short phrase of faith, it becomes a ripple that tells someone hidden in silence that they are not alone. Staying connected by subscribing is not about following content. It is about keeping your soul anchored in a steady stream of strength, ensuring that your spirit never runs dry in the days ahead. And when you give, whether through prayerful support or a seed sown, you are stepping into a divine partnership. You become a co-laborer in expanding this light, helping it reach homes, hearts, and nations you may never set foot in. Together, these simple acts are oil for the flame. They keep the fire burning, not just for you, but for countless others still searching for their way home. So let your response today echo your victory. Pass the flame, carry the light, and let heaven use even the smallest action to write a much greater story through your life.